Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here and you are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button and the like button, and please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Zack Snyder's Crisis on Infinite Earths. I believe, and by the way, before we get into this, I don't have any exclusive news, so you may have to go if you were waiting for something exclusive, but I do have a theory that Zack Snyder's Crisis on Infinite Earths was the ultimate plan. So I believe that the slate would have ended up the way it was, but obviously Zack was taken away from us, and they took Zack Snyder away from his grand plan, and it was a grand plan. I've said before that you can't just judge Zack on BVS and MOS and the other films that followed. You've got to see the whole picture. Zack once said to us, do you want to go down the rabbit hole? Right now, I think we just got our heads down the rabbit hole and not our whole bodies, right? And this is an interesting concept. So I would say that there was a plan somewhere down the line to have another Batman and another Superman, by the way, and have many and represent many of the Earths. We know that originally there was going to be a Green Lantern movie, and David Goyer was tapped for this. That comes as no surprise. That, of course, isn't happening right now. But who knows? Maybe that's why we're getting a Green Lantern straight-to-streaming TV series on HBO Max. And maybe David Goyer is back with his vision of Green Lantern, which is part of the Snyderverse. So we know there was always going to be multiple Earths, right? That's my theory anyway. And the whole plan was Zack Snyder's Crisis on Infinite Earths. One of the big clues to this, of course, is the fact that Ben Affleck's Batman was going to sacrifice himself by the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League trilogy. And so there's evidence there, because if Batman dies in the DCEU, you need another Batman. What do you do? Well, there's multiple Earths, right? So I even think within Zack's plan that this Earth that we saw BVS and MOS and Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Shazam is not the prime Earth. I've said this on another video before. I don't think it was ever the plan that this is Earth 1. And there's a reason why this Earth is the way it is. It's a lot more grounded, and I think that was purposely done. So multiple Earths were going to be represented. Eventually, and the end game for Zack Snyder was always going to be Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, just imagine what kind of series of films Crisis on Infinite Earths would be from Zack Snyder, with meeting all these different versions of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Mixel-Pixelic, who knows, right? The potential is limitless, and I think this was always going to be the end game. Now, we know that many people are hinting that, including Shiraz Faruqi, who's written many articles for Screen Rant, that Zack is back, and his plan is back in place. Now, a lot of people think that after the Justice League trilogy, that was it for Zack. I don't believe that. I think that, my friends, was just the beginning. And just to think that what the plan was going forward. And too many people were impatient with Zack and this franchise, and everyone just wanted to see Avengers 2.0, right? I never wanted that, right? I think the MCU is a good, solid franchise. I enjoy the films. But I'm not a Marvel fan as such, but I think the films are okay. I'm a DC man. I'm a Superman man. I'm a Batman man. I love these DC characters. And I think the plan that Zack I think it's still ongoing. So I think there's not one Snyder fan who wouldn't want to see kind of Zack Snyder's Crisis on Infinite Earths trilogy, or a quadruplogy, or whatever, right? However you say that word, right? I think, look, at the moment, it's just a theory. No one's confirmed this to me. I have asked a few people in the know, but they're acting very Twin Peaks, if you know what I mean. But that's my theory. I certainly haven't been told by anyone that I talk to that I'm wrong. And I think this was always the ultimate plan. This fight against Darkseid and Steppenwolf was just the little battle, and imagine that, just a bigger enemy, or maybe Darkseid would have returned. I don't know what the bigger plan was, but imagine Zack Snyder was planning on creating multiple Earths, right? And how he would have done that and what kind of filmmakers he would have brought in would have been very, very exciting and very interesting and very unique. And I think with Zack pretty much coming back, I think it's all on the table. So exciting, right? As I've said before, I don't think Zack Snyder and AT&T were negotiating for 6 months just for his Justice League movie. I think that's just because they don't want us to know things right now. They're going to plot out when to leak stuff and release stuff because basically it's all good for HBO Max. It's all good for the DCEU, whether it's the cinematic side of it or the HBO Max side of it. I nearly said a naughty word there, but for crying out loud, they've even set up a DCEU department on HBO Max, right? And obviously they've got the existing movies there, not the Ultimate Edition of BVS, unfortunately, or Man of Steel. But I'm told, and I'm very confident that those films are coming for the platforms by the time we see David Ayer's Suicide Squad and Zack Snyder's Justice League Part 1, Man of Steel and BVS The Ultimate Edition will be there. So, look, I don't know what's going on. I certainly think a trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League could be days away, could be hours away. Who knows? It's been 2 weeks, but you know, trailers, you don't just whip up a trailer, right? And you have to talk to all the studio heads and it's not as easy as people think. I mean, Zack's a clever guy. He could whip one up. I think he wants to make it really awesome. He wants to show us new stuff, but he doesn't want to give too much away. I don't think Zack's really given as much away about his Justice League movie as people think. He's definitely kind of leaked certain things, but there's a lot of things to find out about this movie. Like the rumours that Jared Leto's Joker is in Zack Snyder's Justice League, or is it Justice League 2, or is it Justice League 3? Nobody knows. But if the end game is Zack Snyder's Crisis on Infinite Earths, I think, as I say, not only should this be a Snyder fan's wet dream, it should be a DC fan's wet dream. Whether you like Zack or not, how he does things, you know, he's the man. He's there. You know, and one thing you can say about Zack, he knows how to cast people. He knows how to bring in the right directors. He's a very clever, smart guy. You know, we're back in 2016, aren't we, baby? Paul's not stopped. Amazing. Just amazing. I just imagine what kind of a group of films Crisis on Infinite Earth series would be, as I say, from Zack Snyder. And it just makes you drool. It just makes you think, wow, the potential, as I say, is limitless. And I've also wondered about timelines now. So when would have James Wan's Aquaman been released? I mean, it was always going to be released after Justice League. So I'm assuming originally, after Zack Snyder's Justice League, it would have been Aquaman. Anyway, I'm interested to think that there's not much continuity from Aquaman to Joss Whedon's Justice League. And I think that's because Walter Hamada, who runs the whole of DC films and projects, decided he didn't like Justice League. That's a fact. And he really didn't. I think he was always hoping that he could bring Zack back. But he obviously knew that the people running the studio at the time weren't going to have any of that. They wanted to go MCU, and that's the way, of course, that they went. But if Zack is back, and I have no reason to doubt this, of course, it sounds too good to be true. We need some confirmation. Apparently, there's going to be announcements for some projects. I think if I heard it announced that Ben Affleck is doing a straight-to-streaming movie or TV series about his Batman, right? I'll definitely do a video. You probably won't understand a word I say. I'll be jumping up and down, so excited. But we'll see how today ends up. I just wanted to do this video and just really give you my theory that Zack's ultimate game was a Crisis on Infinite Earths series, continuing from everything he's done since Man of Steel. And I would be there for that. I mean, creating multiple Earths of characters is a very difficult thing to do. No one's ever done it, really. I know it's been done on the animated films, and I think that's amazing. But to do it in live action, it's a lot of hard work. It's the writing, it's the directing, it's the performances, but it's the creative process. The casting is very important, of course, and getting other people to ultimately kind of create other characters and other worlds as well. So there's a real universe happening right now. That was Zack's plan, to create a massive, huge universe, which just didn't involve the characters he's created in the DCEU right now, but to give us much more than that. This is something that's never been attempted, not just in DC film, but in any film, in any franchise. It's so ambitious, and I'm so down for it. But what do you think about this? Would you like to see Zack Snyder's Crisis on Infinite Earths? I certainly would. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe. And if anything breaks about the Snyderverse today, I shall be back. Maybe. See you again soon.